Hello, my name is Jordan Payares. This is my delivery of the assignment number one, a teaching pronunciation activity. The target sound that I chose for this specific activity, it is the long E sound and the short E sound. The expected time to complete this activity, it is 15 minutes. I planned this activity for eighth grader students. They study in a small town here in Cesar in Colombia, and they are on a, as I mentioned, they're on a A2 level. Sometimes they struggle to pronounce some of these words, and sometimes they struggle pronouncing things at all because in the Spanish, in our Spanish, it is not common to have different vowel sounds. So it is a significant challenge for my EFL learners, the distinction between these two. In this case, the long E sound and the short E sound. Now, since in Spanish, there is like one E sound, which is very close to the to the long E sound, but shorter in duration, students most of the time substitute the English sounds. In this case, they don't make stress when they need to, and sometimes it can be confusing in meaning, or maybe they understand or can understand something because of that. So that's the reason why I chose this specific target sound. Now, how I'm going to make students aware of these of these different sounds. Well, in this case, I prepare a tongue twister, which is, let's say, it's a very common pronunciation activity, but I'm going to provide some scaffolding for them in order that they reach the goal, which is pronounce properly the words and also to differentiate how they actually sound. So I'm gonna first ask the students to read aloud each of the statements, and maybe I'll be asking them to take turns in order to find the correct sound of of these words highlighted. In this case, in underline. Now, after that, I'm going to play a recording of my own voice, or maybe a voice that I found on internet, and the students will listen several times the correct pronunciation of the statements or the tongue twisters. Now, once that I have done that, I'm going to ask the students if they find differences in the differences in pronunciations in the underlying words. Now, I'm gonna use a question like this to make them aware about the changes that are in the pronunciation of the sound. Now, I'm gonna sort, or I'm gonna ask them to sort the words in two categories according to how they sound. Then I'm going to ask the question, which group requires you to smile more, or which group feels more relaxed? I'm going to ask these questions so students are like, let's say they land on the idea that there is a different pronunciation in the sound. Now, I'm going to ask them to try themselves to to do this extra activity. In this case, they're going to look themselves in the mirror and then going to pronounce two of the words, in this case, feed and fit. And I'm going to ask them where they feel more tension, pronouncing the first or the second one. That's something that can help them to differentiate the, the pronunciation of the sound. This is an extra or an alternative activity that I can also use to help them to realize which is the proper sound. They're going to put their fingers on their mouth. They're going to pronounce both words. And the idea is that they realize which is the difference in sound. Now, I'm gonna ask them once again to read the sentences aloud and hope for the best they complete or achieve the pronunciation, the correct pronunciation of the sounds. Okay, so this is my delivery. I expect it fulfills all the requirements. Thank you for your attention.